Okay, so this is the first step of the Android Studio project tutorial. So we first need to download Android Studio. So we are going to search up Android Studio download, and it should be this first link, the developer link that pops up. Click to download Android Studio Hedgehog, scroll all the way down, read the terms and conditions. So I am on a M2 Mac, so I need to select Mac with an Apple chip. If you have a Mac with an Intel chip or a Windows computer, this process will probably still be fairly similar, but just be aware of that difference. So now we're gonna wait for it to download, and this is gonna probably take a few minutes. Okay. Okay, so our download looks like it's finished. So we're gonna go ahead and open up the download or the install file. We're gonna drag the Android Studio icon into the applications folder. Now to open up Android Studio, you can either navigate to the applications folder through Finder, or I like to simply go to Launchpad and it should be at the end of your apps on Launchpad. Okay, it's gonna ask you if you want to download this app from the internet, and we do, so we can just click open. And you might have some like setup questions that it walks you through, and we can just go ahead and select the default for all of those. And then we can click new project to go ahead and get started.
Alright, hey everyone. Just first off, I'm going to create a new project. Go to basics, view activity, and we name this one my first app. I'm going to save the location anywhere, preferably in Android Studio projects. I'm gonna save mine specifically somewhere else, but feel free to do whatever you like. Android Studio probably will be your default. Make sure you change the language to Java and have the latest SDK. I like to do 24, but you can do higher if you like. Make sure you have Kotlin, or you can use Groove if you like. I just, for this purpose, for this video purpose, I'll use Kotlin DSL. Go and finish. Okay, once your thing's loaded, let's see if we can add some quality of life updates. Let's see, so find it real quick. Okay, cool. So you're gonna click for Mac OS, click Android Studio, go to settings. I believe you can do the same on Windows if you go File and Other Settings. But basically, you're gonna use this toolbox. You can type in Auto Import, and you're gonna open this right here. Hopefully, you have this add unambiguous imports on the fly checked. Make sure that's checked so that we have this IDE importing us stuff for our sakes automatically. And yeah, so when we first get started, we're gonna add a device. Go to Device Manager. You won't have this much, or if any, devices. So for our sake, let's just imagine that we have nothing under here. So we're gonna press the plus button. You can pick any phone. I'll just do medium phone for now, but any phone's fine really. But next, now for this part, you're gonna want to download any of these, preferably the latest or any of the recommended ones. All you're gonna do is just click on the one that you want to download. Click on this download icon right here. Download. It's gonna download for you. I've already downloaded some, so I'm gonna go ahead and just use this one for simplicity's sake. So once it's done downloading, make sure it's highlighted in blue and click next. And then you're gonna click finish. Make sure this is also in portrait mode, by the way. Very important. Yeah, once it's done, you should see it here. So use this one right here. You unclick this, and we already get started. Now, once you have installed a device, you can go ahead and just launch it and see how it works. So to run your app, you go press this button right here. You can run it. Give it some time to load, and it should pop up. All right, so here is our app. Nothing too crazy. Just some auto-generated Latin text. We have a nice next button that goes to the next page. Same thing. Here's a settings. Doesn't really do anything. Yeah, that's about it. You can go ahead and close this, but stop the app and minimize it. And yeah, that is all for now. I'll see you in the next steps. Thank you.
Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to explore the layout editor. So what we'll need to do is first open the res folder, open layout, and then click on fragmentsfirst.xml. After doing so, we'll see the palette, component tree, design editor, and the attributes panel. The palette is views you can add to your app. The component tree shows the views currently in this file and how they are arranged in relation to each other. And the design editor shows a visual representation of what the contents of the file will look like when compiled into an Android app. In the upper right-hand corner above attributes, we'll find three icons. And these icons show us how the code or the design editor will look. So right here, we have the design icon, and this icon just shows the design aspect. Here we have the split icon, and clicking this icon will allow us to see both the design and the code. And lastly, we have purely just the code icon, and where we can have only the code visible. And these icons are useful because they allow us to dictate what we want our visibility to be depending on the size of our screen. And clicking back onto the design panel, if we look here, we can adjust the zoom. So if we want to zoom in or zoom out, that's how we do it. Now we will explore view hierarchies. If we look at our component tree, we will notice that the view of the hierarchy is a constraint layout view. Every layout must have a root view that contains all the other views. The root view is always in a view group, which means that it contains other views. A constraint layout is one example of a view group. Notice the constraint layout contains a text view and a button first, called text view first and button first. Now, if we look at our code by clicking the code icon, we'll see that in the XML code, the root element is Android.constraintLayout.widget constraint layout. And within this root element, we find that there's a text view element and a button element. Now I'll show you how to change property values. So if we look at the text view element and we click on the string in the text view element, we'll find that it references a string resource called Lorem Ipsum, which is the font being used for this text. And if we right click on this and go to, and we right click on this and click on go to and go to declaration or usages, we'll find that we can now see all of the text that we see displayed on the screen. And we can change the value of the string, which is in between these two triangle brackets, to hello world, just to show you how that the text can be edited. Okay, now once you're done with that, you can switch back to fragment1st.xml, and you can go to your design panel and click text view first in the component tree. And if we look at our attributes panel and open the declared attributes section, so ours is already open, so we don't need to open that. In the text field or text view attributes, we'll still see that it still refers to the string lorem ipsum. And having the strings in a resource file has several advantages. You can change the value of the string without having to change any other code, and this simplifies translating your app to other languages because your translators don't have to know anything about the app code. So that's what that is. And then we can run the app again, and we can see that it now just shows hello world. Lastly, we'll look at how to change text display properties. Now, with text view first still selected, let's go into our attributes panel and expand the common attributes. And within common attributes, you'll find some of the common characteristics of our text, like the font family, the size, alignment, style. And here we can just edit some of these attributes to see how it affects the code. So we'll change the font family. Actually, we'll leave this blank for now. We'll just change the size to 24. The color to let's do darker gray, and let's make it bold. And now, if we refresh the app, we'll see that the changes have been applied to our hello world text. And we can also see this within our code. Now we have 24 and bold added. Now I'm going to show you how to update the appearance of the buttons and the text view. First, we'll add new color resources. So if we open the res dropdown folder and we navigate to values and then to colors.xml, we'll see we first want to add button background, a new color named button background, and we'll set it to this value. And let's change our screen background to this value, which resembles a light blue. So we'll end up with a light blue background and red buttons. And when we hit refresh, so we see that our background has changed color, but our buttons are still the same. And there's a reason for this, and that's because sometimes, I'm not sure why, but there's this error, and to rectify it, we need to go to themes and themes.xml, open this up, and here we'll find this parent, and we'll find this string here, and we need to change it to the following. It'll be theme dot app compact dot light dot no action bar. And we can take this, copy it, because we also need to change themes.xml night to the theme.app compact.light no action bar. And after doing this, if we now refresh, we will see that our button has finally changed color. And only one has changed color, and that's because we need to add the following text. Let me find it right here, Android background add color / button background. So we need to just copy this and add it to our other buttons. And now all of our buttons should be our updated background color, as you can see. Now I'm
Okay, so up until this point in the tutorial, you have looked at changing different property values within Android Studio, and so now we're going to learn how to create more resources similar to the string resources you created earlier to change different properties within our app. So we're going to start by going into the project panel on the left. We're going to scroll down into the res folder and then into the values folder. We're going to open up this colors.xml file. So this file contains, similar to the strings.xml file, it contains predefined things, predefined resources, or defined resources for our project. So here we have defined colors. So you can see we already have black and white defined for this project. So we're going to go back to the first fragment XML file, and under text view, so we can scroll, change this view a little bit. Not. So we're going to scroll and find text view, and we're going to add a new property called Android background. So we can add it just below our other Android properties, type Android background, and then we're going to type in at color slash design default color primary dark, and it can autofill for us. Just go ahead and click on that. So Android Studio has a set of colors that it has like predefined for our use. So that includes all the primary colors and these like primary dark colors. So we can also, if you don't want to type in new attributes, you can go under your attributes panel, and under all attributes, you should see things like the background property that we just added. And we can also see the color that we just set the background to. It's kind of hard to see with the dark gray background, but it's this dark blue color. All right, so now we are going to go back up to Android text color right here, and we're going to change this to white. Color slash white. So white is predefined within the Android Studio framework, but we also have it defined in our colors.xml file. So now we are going to add a new color to our colors resources XML file to use as the screen background color. So we're going to go back to colors.xml, and we're going to add in a new color resource. So color name equals, and then we are going to call this color screen background. And for the color value, we're going to type in hashtag FFEE58. And so what this value that we just typed in is the hex code for the color. So all colors have 3 hexadecimal numbers, so that's 2 digits for each number, representing the what are called the RGB values of the color. So that's the red, green, and blue values. And we can see that some colors also have an extra hexadecimal number at the beginning, and that indicates the opacity or the transparency of the color. So FF means that it is 100% opaque. The color is as non-transparent as it can be. And if the first 2 numbers are 0, 0, then the color is totally transparent and you will not be able to see it. So we're going to go back to our first fragment XML file and go down and select constraint layout in our component tree. It's kind of tiny on my screen. Go ahead and find it in there, and then go over to the attributes panel and select the background property. So we can again scroll through this all attributes to find it. It's right here. And then we can go ahead and type in at color slash screen background. And again, it'll probably autofill. And we can click enter, and we can go ahead and see that that hex code that we put in to our resource file for colors is actually this really pretty yellow color. So we can actually click on this little swatch here next to the background feature to bring up resources. So we have all of our defined colors within this project. And then we can go over and click custom. And this allows us to change this color using all of these color and gradient sliders. So we can change the color family. Once we have a color family set, we can change how light or dark it is. And then we can also change the transparency here. And then down here, we have all of Android Studio's predefined colors for our use as well. So go ahead and play around with this. You can see, maybe if you wanted a light pink color, you could come over to this sort of magenta red area. And then you can drag this little dot around to make the color different levels of saturation. So do light pink. Maybe that's not quite light enough. You want to make it kind of transparent. So you can see that change the background over here, but it looks a little different over here. And we can see that as we make all of these changes, the hex code right here also changes. So I'm going to go ahead and set the hex code back to that yellow, but you can change it to whatever you like best for your project. Just try and make it different from these predefined colors down here. And keep in mind that your final project will look a little different than this demo if you choose to use a different color. So now we are going to explore height and width properties. So we're back in the first fragment.xml file, and we're going to select that constraint layout again. And now we're going to scroll up from our all attributes and find this layout section. Yours is probably collapsed like that, so we can just go ahead and expand it. And we will see that we have here our two main properties are layout width and layout height, and right now they are both set to match parent. So this just means that they're matching whatever the parent property is. So in this case, for the background, these are, the parent is going to be just the size of the screen. And we can scroll here, it's kind of hard to see, but we can see that in fact our background is in fact filling the entire screen. So we're going to go over to our component tree again and select our text view. And we can scroll back up or down to layout. And we can see here that layout width and height are instead set to wrap content. And this just means that whatever that background color is going to just be big enough to enclose whatever content is inside of it, plus a little padding. So here our content is our text box that says hello world. So the background color of this component is only going to cover the background of that hello world text. So go ahead and change the layout width and height to match constraint. So we can use this little drop down. This is 0dp match constraint. And notice that when we do this, it expands the text box. It's kind of hard to see, but it expands the text box to cover the entire screen except for the button. So this is basically just telling us that the view can be as big as it can be until it hits constraints like the screen size or the button. And so we can also see that it chooses this 0dp, so I guess that's like the border size, and it moves the text to the top left corner, but it also leaves a little extra space at the top so that we can still see that button. So the button and the text have the same hierarchy in the layout, so they're sharing the space. So now what happens, we can go ahead and run this so it comes up on our virtual device over here. And it might take a minute, but it'll be easier to see. All right, so what happens if we change only the layout width to match constraint, and then we set the layout height back to wrap content? Well, we can kind of see very tinily over here that it just makes this long, skinny background instead of a big, like, rectangle or a big square. So we can see that the width is as big as it can be based on the screen size, but the height is only as big as the text. So go ahead and play around with different combinations of these constraints and see how they affect the text background. So now, if you're playing around with that a little bit, we're going to go ahead and set both the layout width and height back to wrap content. We can also, though, play around with selecting button first on our component tree, scrolling to the layout, and we can also click match constraint and see how this changes. Again, it will expand in that direction as far as it can based on the screen size. So play around with that a little bit and then go ahead and set your button back to wrap content. All right, so now we've looked at how to change some of our color resources in Android Studio, as well as how to change some of the layout of our components.
All right, so here we are. Now we're going to add some buttons and more features to our setup. So go to the fragment first.xml with the design page, and near the mid left section you should see a palette, in common, there should be a button. Click on that, drag it over, put it anywhere you want for now. And before we do anything else, let's go ahead and set up our other two previously adjusted stuff. So for the next button, for Mac, you can press Command left click. For Windows, I believe you can also do Control left click. If neither of those won't work, you can always select the actual item that we're adjusting, go to Attributes, and in this layout constraint widget, you could hover over each dot and click on it to remove these constraints. So right now we're going to go ahead and remove this constraint. Alright, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to put this next button in the bottom right, and this new button that we just created in the bottom left. And I'm going to go ahead and add constraints. So I'm going to go ahead and adjust this to the left of the screen and this to the right. This will be attached to this one, so you just simply click on this white dot and drag it to this box. Go to the bottom one. Do the same thing. Drag, drop, bottom. Now these two are bounded by this. Next, we will change this thing from button to toast underscore button. And refactor everything. Coming back here, we will adjust the constraints for the text view boxing because I made little oopsies. So go ahead and remove the constraints from the buttons from the top ones. So they should just be constrained to the left and the right respectively. Go ahead and bound this to the bottom and top of the screen. And then we can constrain the buttons to this. Go ahead and click the bottom. There we go. Nice. Right, pause. Alright, go back to the code and we see this toast right here. We want to change this right here. So you can click on it, hover over it, with a light bulb, go to extract string resources. And you're basically going to want to change this to toast button text. Go down here, change this to toast. That's okay. So after doing that, if you launch and run the program, you should see that it should say now toast. Nice. Pause. Alright, now we want to go ahead and adjust the next button. So we'll go back to fragment first, and instead we're going to try to find and navigate strings.xml. That should be in values. Values should be under the res folder. So res, values, strings. And we're going to look at where next is. Next right here. So instead of next, we're going to want to change that. And we're going to want to click on the string, not the name, but the string. Click on that, right click, and go to refactor and rename. I'm going to change it to random text button. And then we're going to change the actual string to random. Now that you're done, you can go ahead and launch the app and see what it looks like right now. So yeah, now I have toast and random. Nice. Alright, now that we have created this new button, we're going to go ahead and go back to strings.xml so that we can change the hello world to 0. So instead of hello world, we go over to your lorem ipsum, delete that, just put a 0, save, and make sure you run it. You should see 0. Nice, we see 0. Cool. Pause here, close, and then right where we had create our button, we want to change the attributes of this and change the name of button to count button. So now our buttons are toast button, count button, and random. So go ahead and change the button first to random button. Refactor everything. Go back to the fragment underscore first XML. You're gonna find the new button that we just made right here. So as you can see in the text, you see that it still says button. So we can go ahead and change that and go over extract string resources. And we're gonna go ahead and change this to count button text and change this to count. Press OK. Oh, and before I forget, if you have any errors, like say in your first fragment.java, it's probably because we still haven't fully changed all of the other names of our random button. So one of the errors that I had recently encountered was changing random button's actual name. So if you scroll down, it should be one of the very first two methods under on view created. And you go over here to where it says binding dot insert name. It should have been button first, but change that button first to random button, and it should fix it. And if you press run, you should see a screen looking like this. We have toast, account, and a random button here. Close that, and go back to our first fragment. You see that all of them have their respective names and IDs.
Now I'm going to show you how to add margins to our buttons. So for our toast button, we can change the margin to 24, which shifts it over to the right a little bit. And we can change our random button also to 24, which will shift it to the left a little bit more. And we did that through the attributes panel and under the constraint widget. And similarly, we can do the same to our text view. So we can add vertical and horizontal bias, and we can do so either through the code or we can do so through the constraint widget. And I'll add vertical bias through the code and the horizontal through the widget, just to show you both ways how it can work. So let's just add a vertical bias of 0.3. So we were originally at 0.5 and we're gonna make it now 0.3. And this should just center our text a bit more. And refresh. So yep, it's a little bit higher. And now let me go back to our button view, or design view, and this is our horizontal bias. So this vertical bias is originally at 50, and now it's at 30. So we can put it back to 50 here. And if we go to our code, it will say, hold on. I guess it's say, I guess it goes away. That's odd. Well, never mind that. But yeah, so we can just manipulate it from here, and we can also do the same for horizontal bias. So let's leave this at 50. There we go. So yeah, that's how we update the appearance of buttons and the text view.
Okay. So in the previous step of the tutorial, you added buttons to your app, but they currently don't do anything. So in this step of the tutorial, we are going to add some functionality to those buttons. First, we're going to edit a little bit the code that controls the random button that was originally the next button. And then we're going to make the toast button display a pop-up message, and then the count button update the number here in text view. But before we do any of that, we have to go ahead and enable auto imports in our Android Studio settings. This is going to make it a lot easier writing code in a minute, so that we don't have to stop and import different classes. Android Studio will just go ahead and import them for us. So we're going to go to your Android Studio settings. If you are on a Windows computer, you may have a settings tab up at the top of your screen, or you may find settings under the File tab. It would be somewhere down here. But I'm on a Mac, and so for those of you also on a Mac, click on Android Studio at the top of your screen, and then click Settings. Now we're going to go to Editor Settings, General, then Auto Import. And we want to check this box here that says Add Unambiguous Imports on the fly. Click Apply and OK. All right, so now we're going to open the first fragment.java file. So scroll over to your files here. You may have to search a minute to find it, but mine is under the app folder, then source, main, Java, com.example. Whatever my file name is, and then first fragment.java. So go ahead and open that up. We will notice that there are a couple different methods here. We've got on create view, on view created, and on destroy view. We won't be using the destroy view method at all, so we can just kind of ignore it for the purposes of this tutorial. But we are going to be using the on view created method. This method is going to set up the click listeners for our buttons so that they actually do something when they are clicked. So first we are going to change this section of code right here. This is currently what causes what was originally the next button to move to the second fragment. We are going to rewrite this so it will do the exact same thing. It's just going to match the style of the other methods that we will be writing, or the other sections of code that we'll be writing in this method a little better. So I am going to actually write the rest of my code, or rewrite this code below it, and then go ahead and delete it. So we're going to start by typing view dot find view by ID. I'm going to let it autofill. r.id dot random underscore button, and go out of the parentheses, dot set on click listener. And then here we're going to type new, and then view dot on click listener, and then space, brackets, and click enter. Don't panic right now that this is red underlined. It will be fixed in just a second. We're going to type at override. So this is overriding the default method. And then public void on click. So we're overriding the on click method. We're going to set a parameter of type view, and we're just going to call it view, open brackets. And then this part is going to look similar to what's written above. We have nav host fragment, and then dot find nav controller, in these parentheses, first fragment dot this, and then dot navigate, and then we're going to type in r.id dot action underscore first fragment to second fragment. You can go ahead and type this out, or your Android Studio will likely autofill it for you, so we can just go ahead and click on that. Now, a quick note, this is a really long line of code, so to make it a little more readable, we're going to go ahead and split it into 2 lines. So before the dot navigate, I'm just going to click enter. So the computer will still read this as 1 line, but we can read it in 2, and it just makes it a little easier to see. All right, now because we have these 2 sections of code that are written a little differently but do the same thing, we're going to delete this first one. So everything from binding.randomButton down to that semicolon. Delete it. Be careful not to delete the code you just wrote. But we can go ahead and rerun our app. And the random button should still take us to the second screen, and it does. So that's good. Now we are going to add the on-click listener for our toast button. So this is going to look really similar to what we just wrote. View.findView by ID, but this time we're going to write r.id.toast_button, and then .set on-click listener, new view.onClick listener, and then again we're going to override the default of the method that we're about to write. Public void onClick view. Oop. And now new object of type toast. And you can see it turns red for a second there and then goes to white. That means that Android Studio is auto importing things for us. My toast equals toast.makeText. Get activity, and then comma, and we're going to type in a string, hello toast. And then toast.length short. And then we need a semicolon there. And then my toast.show. Now, if you wanted to go ahead and practice creating new string resources, like we did earlier in the tutorial, you could go ahead and make this hello toast a string resource, but for the sake of time, and I'm not going to do that. So now we are finished writing the click listener for our toast button, so we can rerun the app and see if we click the toast button, we get a pop-up down here that says hello toast. So that is very cool. And then we are going to go back now to this fragmentfirst.xml file, and we want to go ahead and find the ID for our text view. So we can scroll down until we see text view, and right here we have the ID attribute. And so we can see this right here, we've got the ID of our text view. So it's text view _ first. And now we're going to go back to the first fragment Java file and add, again, it looks very similar to the code that we've just written, view.findView by ID, r.id.count button, set onClick listener, new view.onClick listener, at override, public void onClick view. But now, instead of writing all of that stuff in there, we're just going to write count me with view. And so we can see this is red, it's giving us an error. We don't actually have a count me method yet, so we have to go ahead and write that. So we're in the first fragment class. We are going to add a new method, count me, that takes a single count argument. So we have to be sure that we are doing this like outside of the method that we're writing in right now. So I like to make sure that I do that by just going to the last bracket, which indicates the end of the class, and we're just going to put it in right by that. So private void count me, and it's going to take a single parameter of type view that we are going to call view. And so the first thing that we have to do in this method is we have to get the value of the show count text view. So I'm going to write some comments here so that I know what the code is doing. So we're going to write string count string equals show count text view dot get text dot toString. This is red right now, and that's okay. We're going to fix that in just a second. So now we're going to convert value to a number and increment it. So integer, make sure you use type integer and not an int variable. Count equals integer dot parse int from count string and count plus plus. And now we are going to display the new value in the text view. If I can spell. So we're going to do show count text view dot set text count dot toString. Okay, so we could call the find view by ID in CountMe to find show count view, but find view by ID is kind of a time-consuming method to run, and we don't really want to run it every single time the button is clicked. So instead, we're going to find the view and we are going to cache it. So before all of the methods here, we are going to go ahead and add a new variable of type text view. So we can go up right below the class and just write, oh my goodness, text view, and then show count text. Okay. And so now in onCreateView, we can call find view by ID to get this show count text view. But we have to call find view by ID on a view where the search for the requested ID should start. So we're going to assign the layout view that is currently returned to a different variable called fragment first layout. So instead we are going to under so in onCreateView, below this thing that says bundle, after the open bracket, we are going to go ahead and we can delete this binding stuff because we're not using it anymore. And make sure that, okay, now we're good. So we can go ahead and delete that. And then we are going to add in something to inflate the layout of the fragment. So inflate the layout for this fragment. And so we're going to type view fragment first layout. So this is a new variable equals inflator dot inflate, in parentheses r dot layout dot fragment first. So they were using that first fragment ID that we found, comma container, comma And then we have to go and make sure we add in a semicolon. All right. So now we need to call find view by ID on the fragment first layout and specify the ID of the view that we do want to find. And then we are going to cache that value in show count text view. So I'm going to go ahead and get the count text view. So show count text view equals fragment first layout dot find view by ID r dot ID dot text view first. So that's the ID that we found earlier when we went to the first fragment.xml file. And so now we have to return this fragment first layout from this onCreate view method. So we are going to return fragment first layout. All right, and we should see that all of the stuff that down here that was all red and showing lots of errors has now been fixed. So now we can go ahead and rerun our app and all of our buttons should be functional. So we can test, we can see we still have the pop-up for the toast button. And if we click count, that number increments, we can keep clicking it, and then random takes us to the next screen.
All right, time for the very last task, which is to implement the second fragment. So first off, we want to open up the fragment second.xml. And when you open it up, you're going to see how they're all constrained. So we're going to want to go ahead and remove these constraints. And what I like to do is go to attributes, click on constraint layout, make sure it's tabbed, and I'm going to make the minimum height 730 dp. That should stretch it out for us. Put this right here. I'll put this right here. Now I'm going to go back to palette, common text field, drag the text view box right over here. That new text view that we just created, we're going to change the ID to text view underscore random, just like that. Press enter, refactor. And then we're going to constrain this top text view to the very first one that was originally here, to the bottom of it. And then we're going to go ahead and constrain the right to the right screen, left to the left screen, and the bottom to the top of the previous button. Just like that. Alright, make sure that text view as width and height is wrap content, which it is. And then we're going to go ahead and change the color of the text to white. Let's go down all the way here. Text color, I want this to be white. And then we're going to want the size to be 72 SP. Enter that. And we want to change the text style to bold. So we're going to go here, drop down, put bold, and hover over it. There you have it. Then we're going to set the text, the actual text, right here. So just a simple R. Just R will do for now. And then we'll go ahead, go all the way up, go to layout, and then we're going to make the vertical bias 45. So let's go this to 45, and there we have it. That should be it. Back to the fragment second.xml file. And change the very first text view box, and it should be set to some sort of text. Now we're going to change this text to whatever the name is in string. So go back to the strings, and we're going to set it equal to second fragment label. So go back to fragment second XML and change the lorem ipsum to second fragment label. All right. Now we go ahead and back and go to second fragment label and change the text to. I'm going to go ahead and change the name of this. I'm going to refactor. Rename. I'm going to name this to random heading. Alright. Go back to you see it's changed. And we'll go ahead and change the color of this. So go back to your design. Click on this. Go ahead and change this. Change the color of the text and the size. So for the color, we want to change it to be primary dark and the size to be 24. So go ahead and do that. Change the ID to text to header. I'm sorry for the confusion. That's going to be like that. So we're going to go ahead and just change constraints of this after changing the color and size. So I'll change all the constraints, make it 24, top, bottom, left, right. All right, and then we're going to go ahead and change the ID of our text view. Sorry about that. How about doing that? This in the text view header. Refactor. All right. Go back to our code, make sure everything looks good. Text view header. So we're going to go over the text view in case we have squiggly lines. So level R, resources. I'm going to change this to this R, that's fine. Alright, now we're going to add a second background color for things. So we're going to go over here. Oh, it's this arrow over here, let's see. And bound the button for previous. Let's just do it on the right, left, bottom of the page. Alright, so after we changed the constraints, everything. So what basically what I did was I just mixed around the constraints. Make sure I bounded everything 24, 24, 24. Change it here, constrain this to the left, right, bottom. So now we're going to go ahead and click on constraint layout. We're going to go ahead and change the color so we get more visible here. And go to resources and go to screen back on 2. Right, now everything's visible. I'll go to a new thing called navigation. Open that up, the nav graph. Now we're going to go ahead and flip these around. So drag the first fragment to the left, second fragment to the right, and you should see that the first fragment points to the second fragment and the second fragment points to the first fragment. Then we are going to enable safe args. So we're going to open our Gradle scripts right here. So the very first one, I'm going to go ahead and pause real quick, and I'm going to go ahead and paste what you need to have in your very first one. So give me 1 second, right? So for your build Gradle, the very first one, you're going to want to copy this exact thing, paste it. And for the second one, the one underneath it, the module one, copy and paste this. Now that everything's done, we're going to go ahead back to navgraph.xml. You're going to go on the right side to attributes, click on it, and add next, add plus, my arg, go to insert type, no integers, you're going to add. Now we're going to open, close this, we're going to open up our first fragment Java, and underneath the onView created, we're going to paste in a code. Alright, so here we're back on first note. I added another code to make sure everything's working. So on your very first build.gradle.kts, the very first one, um, I added this line right here. Make sure you have all this. And move forward. We're gonna go ahead and copy paste the code right here. This is the code that you want to replace. So whatever random button method that you had over here, replace it with this new one right here. And if you get this error, go back to nav underscore graph.xml, open up attributes, make sure that your first one has no, oops, make sure you add my one, oops, made a mistake over here. Make sure only the second one has fragment, the first one does not. The second one should have it. So we go back here and it should fix this error. So yeah, my mistake, sorry about that. If you run the code, all of our other buttons that we previously worked on are still working. So toast, notification pops up. Count also works, and if you press random, okay. So right now we haven't added any code to change this, but the fact that it works means that we're good to go. So we can close that, pause that, and then next we're going to edit our second fragment Java so we could actually update the second fragment so we could see the number increase. So you open second fragment Java, in the second fragment.java, and you're gonna look for onViewCreated, and right below the super method, or the line with the super.onViewCreated view, comma, save instance state, you're gonna want to copy and paste this line of code and type it out right here. So under the super, but right above the binding.button second. So you're gonna copy paste this code and you're gonna save, and hopefully everything works. Let's start it. Here's the first fragment, so we toast. You see the little notification right here. Toast again. You see it again. We can count, we can increase this. Let's go up to 17 because that's my favorite number. Alright, a little random. Nice. So this is it. Just like that, it works. Alright. Well, that is how you make an app using Java in Android Studio. Thanks for watching and have a good day. Thank you. Bye bye.